First. Yeah, thank you for joining me. This is the first time I'm doing the podcast with a couple, basically. I never expected you people will be coming together to the podcast. And what made you to come together?
We just got to download that there is no separation between us, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also what the work that we do, it's both of us. It's the kind of work that neither of us would have been able to start or go as deep as we needed to on our own. And our own path on on getting to deeper layers of ourselves has been done together. So we
Mm-hmm.
really do present as one, operate as one in complementary ways, and especially to these conversations, that's what we also want to bring is the same but different perspectives where we are on our path as well and allow people to connect to us as one. So that's why when we go on podcasts, it is typically a two for one.
Mhm. Generally, in these spiritual things, people's are it is very hard to stay as a couple because as we speak to many people and we come across the people, there is a lot of things which will come across, like sometime peoples will fall in love with, and sometime peoples will actually needed a better healing in the sort of different layers of the existence and things like that. How do you as a couple you see this?
Well, what's ironic is that by the time we finally came together, it was after a past life regression where the
Mm-hmm.
heart walls were knocked down and I realized what the feelings were. And um, really, our hearts had been working for years and we didn't even realize it. As an astrologer yourself, we're both Uranus in the seventh house Capricorn. So
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
that tells you anything as well,
Mm-hmm.
that need for independence as well is very strong in
Mm-hmm.
that as well. And so that sort of was played off for most of our lives in a way that we always thought independence is the way to go, become successful, get what you need, and then find a
Mm-hmm.
partner, or find
Mm-hmm.
a partner under certain conditions. And we really hadn't connected the whole part of our charts together to recognize that really a lot of this relationship comes from the unconscious first, deep unconscious, and then it later became apparent to us at the conscious level.
Mm-hmm.
And at the conscious level now we've got that commitment and to like spiritual growth together and always making sure that we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how we see it.
So this particular you people's met together in a PLT therapy. I mean the past life regression therapy. Right?
We
Is that
didn't
what?
meet there.
No.
This is not our first life
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, we met during a very difficult period of our lives, working in different corporate
Mm-hmm.
environments. And given everything that was happening in the world with COVID, we became each other's light in a world of darkness, and so much that was just crumbling down and changing and dissolving around us. And we were the only people who we could talk to during such times. And we became best friends. And over time and slowly opening up to our inner architecture and the deep unconscious and starting on the healing journey together, which fast forward landed us in Brisbane interstate. We had a tarot reading in which
Mm-hmm.
it was revealed to us that we shared a past life together. And then it was the past life regression in which the higher self was still in resonance after the session. And 3 hours after that, we found each other. We found ourselves in a relationship. So it is such a blessing to just have such deep love with someone, but also to be able to walk the spiritual path and to have
Mm.
so much space and conscious awareness and deep understanding of whatever comes up and where we are and honoring whatever it is truly the greatest gift left, let alone to be able to forge a business from that, let alone to be able to practice, whether it's astrology or human design, or do readings on each other, or speak these languages that seem so foreign, and to really have truth as our shared highest value. It is something that we both never thought would even be feasible. Something like this seems like a fantasy. It's so hard to find a community which is even in the spiritual community, there is, I guess, a level of lack of spiritual hygiene
Mm.
or whatnot. But to have it in a partner is just, it is such a gift. And of course, it's conscious work. It's conscious work on it every day. We don't take it for granted. And, we have not had any good models around us, and we do not want to slip into any
Mhm.
of those unconscious patterns. So we take pride in the work on unconscious relating.
And
Mhm.
can I also add as well that no matter how much work I've done to look deeper, there's more history with us than I possibly realized. So there's always more we can lean back on as well.
Mhm.
Even if things do become challenging, which I have no doubt that they're going to remain strong for a very long time.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And when you did a reading and the cards and the astrology is saying that you peoples are not together, not just in this particular lifetime, it's also from the previous lifetime and previous to previous. And how did you felt about that particular moment, that particular realization?
Oh, well, we have a vertex, don't we, in our astrology? I'm not the
I have to double check.
astrologer, but I think there's a vertex this was a fated connection. But aside, I just wanted to share that as it came to mind. But when we had the tarot reading and it was revealed that we were lovers in a past life, it both was I don't want to say shocking in like the negative sense, but it also made so much sense as to why there was such a deep unconscious resonance,
Mm.
why out of everyone in my life, Daniel is the safest. He's always understood me without me even saying anything.
Mhm.
And that's like, that doesn't just happen. So it was both affirmative, but also really revealing because at that time, something like a relationship or even putting us in the category of lovers seemed foreign. So
Mhm.
it was new, it was exciting, and it was like, okay, there's something brewing here.
Yeah. I want to call it comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, and our family and a lot of us basically treated us like we were dating anyway in the way we were sort of the months leading up to that trip.
Mhm.
Um, we make the joke that we were the last two to realize, but it was really with that
It's true.
regression, going to that deep state of unconscious that it was just all revealed. And it's like, oh God, how did we miss this? Like elephant in the room doesn't do enough justice.
So when we are speaking about the work you do, Daniel and you also is been working together in the process or the in the holy work of uplifting the human understanding into some certain dimensions, which is otherwise is not able to experience to many people. Are you peoples are doing together or you peoples were doing it before also? How does it happen? Like,
So currently we're working to become QHHT practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
and we're being guided when we do sessions on each other because we're both becoming qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, we're actually getting guidance on where we are now, what we have to clear from our past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't really received too much insight on what the future holds for what we want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
but really my background more works with the idea of languages and tools of the spiritual worlds, um, and really just bringing that back. So again, yeah, like astrology, human design. We're working with soul contracts and stuff, but we recognize as well the need to take it more into the mystical using trance states and journeying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're getting more downloads, but at the moment, our big thing is the same past life regression that revealed so much to us is what we've decided to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our next step at the moment.
But even with the coaching and the programs and everything that we want to do when we were we are on the path, this isn't something that is completed, but we would go to certain experiences or certain events, and it didn't offer the depth that we needed in the perspective to really shift what was happening in our reality.
Mm.
You don't get to where we are or where we were and have so many pillars of our life stagnate and not grow and be completely demolished. Some people, when they're on the path, they have one area of their life they want to fix. We have everything across
Mm-hmm.
the board that needed attending to. So we would go to all of these experiences, and there would always be a perspective that
Mm-hmm.
would need to go higher and deeper, which are in, in the same
Mm-hmm.
direction when we, consider on the spiritual path. And it was when we would relate these experiences to each other that Daniel could provide that perspective to me, and through my experiences to a
Mm-hmm.
certain extent, vice versa. And that's also what we want to bring, because we needed to go so cosmic in our exploration to get to the truth of what was happening and to understand ourselves, so we can shift it and transmute it from that point. And that's also what we want to bring is, this tapestry of languages and perspectives that are cosmic in nature, but grounding them here as well. Because ego's got to eat. There's still the human that's playing this character here. And that's
Mm-hmm.
also a big part of what we want to start bridging as well in this space.
And can I add as well that, like in the West, there's
Mm-hmm.
just such a lack of this understanding. The
Mm-hmm.
problems from a spiritual perspective are so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up and being raised in Melbourne, Australia, we just it's shocking how blind so many people around us are, including ourselves for a
Mm-hmm.
large portion of our life. And that when we started to see the light, it's like we need to make this so obvious that, even the layman and even the average person on the street can get it. The
Mm-hmm.
challenge is
Mm-hmm.
if they're ready for it.
Mm-hmm. 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 So this is one of the important aspect which I had an awareness of. Like, many people, they are coming to India and they see the culture in a really different way. Because in India, we
Mm.
worship everything from the plant, from the snake, from the cow, from whatever is possible, we just worship. And when they go back, they will get a reverse cultural shock in
Yeah.
their country, and they are calling me like, I don't, this is how they are behaving, I cannot handle my country now. So this is a kind of cultural shock, like, so have you ever been to India, or do you have a plan to come to India? Or if you are coming to India, do you want to take this sort of culture back to your country, where everything is being seen as the manifestation of the total whole? Or if is that something which you want to do, or is that something which you want to see in your country, when you are trying to say that I want to reach out each and every layman into the dimensions of the spirituality?
India is beautiful as to what it has to offer, and that doesn't even do it justice. And so much ancient divination and texts originate from
Mm.
India or have been really born there, and they are the original version. Once it comes to the West, I think it's so distorted and taken away from what it was originally meant to do.
Mm.
Of course, we would love to experience what it's like to walk on the land there, to be in in the temples, to be around the gurus or the saints that people have had absolutely mystical experiences just walking past one and they see an image or whatnot. Like, there's so many examples, as you may have experienced as well, just being in the vicinity of such, holy, enlightened people. It's definitely something we want to experience, and to be the kind of people that get to go there and get
Mm.
to receive what the country, what the collective has to offer, is something that is very high priority for us, not just in India, but as to many places we can get to. But there is something so special about India, and working with some people there, and just even on just tapping into the culture, how oppressive, how many, you know,
Mm.
the level of cultural shackling, and the distortions in the energy and everything. It's also reflective of the totality, but it's so special, and how far under some people have gone because of the culture and everything is something that if we can do our part in helping people dissolve those layers, it's something that we definitely want to do. So yeah, we'd love to get to India one day.
Absolutely. I consider not going to India as a spiritual person.
Mhm.
Um, like having a deep appreciation for architecture, like beautiful architecture, and never going to Rome. It's the sort of same deal. There's a tragedy in and of itself with it as well. And I do appreciate particularly like Advaita, um, and like the non-duality themes as well. That's always appealed to me. Um, and I do want to do more work with the scriptures, because they're so beautifully written, and they in the West they're not really given their fair place. A lot of people still refer, and even myself, we still refer back to, in this case, myself. My default is always just to go back to, I was raised Roman Catholic, but the Christian scriptures and the Holy Bible, and even though there's a lot of it that I don't agree with, there are some lines that are so powerful that stand out, and just making sure that across all cultures. What I love is like Theosophy and Helena Blavatsky. She traveled over to India and incorporated a lot of the Eastern philosophy and principles, and united them under the saying, "There's no religion higher than truth." And I think that's very powerful for understanding that all religions are all pointing to the same unified, you know, infinite truth that is out there. And I think that India really is a massive pillar in the spiritual landscape of this world that we need to incorporate as well.
So, do you feel like taking a sort of culture like in this particular way, which where everybody is worshipping whatever is possible to be worshipped, like do you feel like taking something like that to the Australia, or do you? What? How do you feel when you are talking about when you are saying, "I want each and every layman in my country is need to be realize this particular spiritual truth"? How do you see that? Like, is that what you meant to a transformed person has to be, or is that you what meant to be a transformed society has to be, or is that something which you can what you are looking into?
So the idea with our business, which is called Truth of You, is the
Mhm,
idea of bringing back divinity back to
mhm,
the self. It's
mhm,
bringing the West is very individualistic, as
mhm,
I'm sure the rest of the world knows.
mhm,
Just look at America and the election recently, and everyone's in the me sort of mindset.
mhm,
Australia's, still under that sort of culture too, in a sense. But
mhm,
what we want to do is more cultivate the wisdom and the awareness of self,
mhm, mhm,
and bring the divinity back to the individual.
mhm,
Um, because really the relationship between the self and the divine really is one of the most fundamental relationships
mhm,
we can really have with it.
mhm,
Um, and this is, why, it's again going back to like the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not make graven images. It's the idea of not to make the idea of God something other than you. The
mhm,
idea is that if you can't understand the divinity within yourself, you can't understand it with anything else.
mhm, 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 mhm. So how do you try to do this in your country? What all are the ways you are trying to implement this?
There's a massive education gap. I was
Mm-hmm,
having a conversation with someone and they wanted to pitch the idea of spiritual coaching loosely.
mm-hmm,
And the person that they were fronting this to was so vehemently against such a notion of just looking at the totality of, I don't even know what they considered spirituality to be, and just rejecting it as a whole. Now, of
mm-hmm,
course, some people you won't be able to reach in this lifetime. It's, as Daniel introduced me to the term, a closed pistachio in this lifetime. They're not
mm-hmm,
opening. It's not happening.
mm-hmm,
Nor can you, force isn't necessarily the right word, but to awaken, but you can invite them to initiate. But
mm-hmm,
even so, there is so much out there when it comes to either modalities or languages that people don't know how to even navigate this landscape, how to navigate that liminal state when they lose themselves. There's so much happening on soul level that when people are on this path and wanting to be the guide that integrates, that sits in between everything, is
mm-hmm,
also quite important to us, but there, it does start with an education piece and bringing these spiritual perspectives that are just missing. People just have there's a spiritual destitution in people's lives, and they think that spirituality is something out there. It's
Mhm,
happening external to the human, but it's
mhm,
not. Spirituality is reality. So a big part is first education and bringing in this language that really isn't common, but it speaks to such a deep part of someone's existence that their soul is like, that's the direction that this is what I need. This is what I've been looking for. And
Mm.
another analogy that Daniel says, it's like there's so much out there that's like eating a bag of chips.
mhm,
There's no sustenance in that. There's no nourishment. The soul needs to be nourished. So a big part of what we do is going to be education, and as the vision goes and the things that we want to create. Daniel had a download through a meditation that the work we'll be doing will be going, it'll be very intimate with people. It'll be accessing very deep, locked up parts of themselves. So as we access those parts, we want to provide the pathway for people to find that within themselves as well.
Mm. And can I add on that as well?
mhm,
With a lot of
mhm,
the past live regressions that we're doing,
mhm,
it's very interesting the way that a lot of people sort of react to it, depending on the culture that they come from. And
mhm,
had a few Indian people who were a lot more easier to talk to about this at the very
mhm,
mental level, where a lot of the Westerners are even skeptical to the idea because it's, well, I don't necessarily believe in that, but I'm willing to explore. And then
mhm,
when it happens, some of them are so shocked by how real it is that they're
mhm,
changed by it, but they still don't even know how to talk to others around them about the experience
mhm,
because it's just opened up a whole new perspective. And so
mhm,
education, there's going to be some very fundamental education, but I do want to see us sort of going deeper with it as well and
mhm,
really bringing it to a more Western perspective, but
mhm,
still respecting all all scriptures, all understanding of truth, and
mhm,
recognizing that there is no linear path to it,
mhm, mhm,
and
mhm,
that everyone has their own unique way to find it.
mhm. So this particular process, so basically what you initially is offering a past life regression treatment. Is that correct? Or-
We don't call it treatment,
Mhm,
um, but QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, and
mhm,
it was
mhm,
developed by Dolores Cannon over 40 years ago.
mhm,
And she was a hypnotist who basically stumbled into accidentally regressing a lady into a past life. And
mhm,
from there, she further developed her technique and was actually able to invite the
mhm,
unconscious.
mhm, mhm,
Um, but one thing that's very important about this, because this isn't specifically a type of, it is a type of hypnotherapy, but it's not classified
mhm,
and regulated in the way regular hypnotherapy is.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so it's never regarded as therapy
mhm,
in that conventional sense.
mhm, mhm,
So just a hypnosis technique that is applied.
mhm, mhm. So if somebody is coming to this particular therapy or particular section, what and all he can expect from this, or how the transformation will happen to him?
Yeah, so the idea is, we get to know a bit about them first because we need to know how to guide
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
when they do all the work, but we're the ones sort of guiding and ensuring that their consciousness gets driven to where it needs to. Um,
mm-hmm,
we induce as a hypnotist does. We get them relaxed into a deep trance, get them visualizing, and
mm-hmm,
then we take them essentially to a place that is most relevant for what they need today.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
depending on time limits and such, some can be as short as one life. Some usually do three. I've even done five.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
we get to explore a bunch of different lives, see what those lives meant. Why are they relevant to show today? Because there's usually lessons or there's experiences that they need to know about in this life. When I
mm-hmm,
was up in Queensland, I had five lives that same day
mm-hmm,
that brought Eleanor and I together. I had five lives where I was all male and they were all themes of very healthy masculinity. And
mm-hmm,
in this life, I've not had strong themes of masculinity, good or bad.
mm-hmm,
It's just
mm-hmm,
been very void. So to be
mm-hmm,
able to gain not only the experience of seeing those lives, but feeling the energy of that was me, was
mm-hmm,
able to unlock something very deep within me to step into what that masculine essence is meant to look like. Because
Mm-hmm.
before that, the idea of being a man is something that was completely foreign to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then so after that, we invoke the unconscious and um, if time allows, and usually there's some prepared questions people want to
Mm-hmm.
ask about health issues, relationships, their life purpose, their spiritual powers,
Mm-hmm.
and we explore that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they get a chance to have the experience of knowing who they were, why it's relevant today. Sometimes they have to let go. Sometimes it's pretty painful, some of the lives, but it's very therapeutic at the same time when you can understand why you do things the way you do in this life. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get to ask some questions, and sometimes we can do clearing,
Mm-hmm.
um, sometimes we can just get the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we find out why we can't get answers as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
which is particular in my case when Eleanor regresses me.
Mm-hmm.
It's we can't reveal that information because Daniel's chosen to
Mm-hmm.
work on that karmically.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
that's
is that anywhere involved any kind of, chemicals or anything that sort? For example, if we look into some sort of spiritual treatments for the shaman's treatment, which is in the North America, and
mm,
also the sort of some yogis which they involve some herbs in the particular treatment that where they will take the peoples to a kind of spiritual experiences in their journey or these kind of things. So is there anything that sort is involved or how does it works?
no,
No.
there's no chemicals or anything involved. It's just the relaxed state of the mind. The mind is amazing in what it can do. And
Mhm,
although chemicals can open up doorways and such,
mhm,
they're not necessary.
mhm, mhm,
Obviously, it takes a lot more work to be able to get to these states without them, but
mhm,
even a lot of this work can be done with QHHT and even our online service,
mhm,
where we do regressions as well, doesn't require the use of chemicals to be able to induce this state.
mhm, mhm. How many sessions are being needed for one person, basically?
A person can come in for one session and they experience so much inner peace that they're
Mhm,
good. They are completely, their cup is filled. And, at the end, Daniel also asks, would you like to do it again? And in that trance state, they're like, no, I'm good.
mhm, mhm,
Typically, if they're induced correctly,
mhm,
for what they're after can be done in one session. If they
mhm,
have more areas of life, they can
mhm,
look at coming back if they have new things that arise.
mhm,
But typically, whatever they come in for, as long as time permits, it can all be done in one session.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Is that advisable to do more than one section or one single section is enough? Like, for example, some parts, sometime the peoples will be more rigid, or mostly peoples will be more of skeptical of what it is going to be happening. So this time the mind itself can create a friction towards the
Mm.
reality which they can experience. So in this kind of situation, what is your call on that?
Yeah, so we still try and work with them to relax and further induce. Um, I've got one client who made it very difficult, and their ego got in the way, and they basically decided to terminate.
Mhm,
We don't try and override anyone's free will. A
mhm,
lot of people think of stage hypnosis
mhm,
with this, and it's nothing of the sort. We
mhm,
never assume control over the way it goes.
mhm,
And a lot of the clients, especially if they have trouble going under, they're fully aware of what's happening.
mhm,
And so we make sure that they get the most out of that period because
mhm,
even if they're not as deep as they might think,
mhm,
they are under to some level at least.
mhm, mhm,
And so we do what we can. Um, and so even though not every client will, especially if they get in there, I want to say get in their own way.
mhm,
Um, if they can't become full somnambulistic and go into deep theta where they can basically just surrender and let the session flow
mhm,
completely, we usually can still get answers that are relevant at least to um, most areas of their everyday life,
mhm,
if not their past lives and such as well.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
But with any of this, it's the integration.
Mm-hmm.
And, someone, there's no point coming back next week because sometimes, we put each other under and we get told, we told you that last time and you didn't act on it. And the integration part is really important. People get paradigm shifting insights as to how they are perceiving themselves versus their true nature, whether they're of a
Mm-hmm.
different realm, whether they're a whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about the integration. You get given everything, not everything, but you get given exactly what you can handle and how much you can integrate.
Mm-hmm.
But when people go back to their ordinary reality and don't necessarily, whether it's listen to the recording or take a perspective that was shared through their unconscious
Mm-hmm.
and seek to understand it and unpack it, they're missing out. And it's not about whether people come back or not. It's like any modality. Have
Mm-hmm.
I integrated everything or as much as I can as to what has come up before I move on to the next thing? Otherwise, whether it leads to a sense of spiritual bypassing as well. It's, constantly seeking for someone else to fix you or whatever it is, and that's not going to enable that deep level of
Mm-hmm.
transformation.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add, it's sort of like a weedy garden, and we help the client weed it all out so they can plant whatever they like. And if they don't integrate and plant something new, weeds grow back.
Mm-hmm. 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 So how was the result so far? How many peoples you have did and how does it's affecting them? What was the result?
It depends on the individual. Some people, if they come in for, let's say, physical ailment,
Mm-hmm.
we had someone come in that could, had a skin issue, and that was to do with self-expression. So
Mm-hmm.
if they've integrated that lesson of expressing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they were told they will just see the skin issue go away. There's no underlying medical issue.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes with health issues that
Mm-hmm.
people have, it gets eliminated straight away and they don't experience the script or the underlying energy packet, it gets removed straight away and they're good. Other times, like for me, for example, the first regression that I had, I was shown the divine feminine way of life, and that's not something that you just
Mm-hmm.
click into overnight. That is
Mm-hmm.
that is a lifetime's worth of work.
Not as a woman in the West, at
And
least.
not as a woman in the West. Yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want a decision on a job or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's simply put, and they're able to
Mm.
move on. So
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of that, cliche statement, like results may vary, but they really do because when you open the hood and you look, we don't know what template people have come in with,
Mm-hmm.
where their soul has ventured into, what has their soul signed up for? What is this all wanting to achieve? There are so many variables. But
Mm-hmm.
if people go back and just do what they always did,
Mm-hmm.
the results are not going to allow themselves to manifest. This isn't the type of work that it's, fix me kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
very deep stated guidance. All healing is self-healing. And if
Mm-hmm.
people take that away and really seek to transform their reality and what they were given, the
Mm-hmm.
results are phenomenal. We are testament to that. Things happened after 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all building up to that, sure, but
Mm-hmm.
still, there's free will involved.
Can I add though, some of the clients we've had that were
Mm-hmm.
more willing and open,
Mm,
um, they experienced such profound sessions that they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't simply walk away back to
Mm-hmm.
their old life either. And
Mm-hmm.
they're they're the best ones really,
Mm-hmm.
because they gave themselves the most permission to take as much as they could away from it. And the the unconscious delivers.
Mm-hmm.
When you open the door and you
Mm-hmm.
invite the unconscious in,
Mm-hmm.
it wants to help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when we've been speaking about the possibilities of divine feminine and subconscious as well. Uh, if we look into the subconscious mindset, the most of the people who is being worked on the subconscious basically are actually from the psychologists from the West. For example, Carl J. Jung actually. He wrote a lot about the subconscious entity and things like that. How do you see about this? What do you see as a subconscious mind?
I'll start with my experience. You find personal development and you read the books and you start learning about the power of the mind and all of those things. And I very much went down the road of, I guess, conventional development and learning about mindset. And I did the things. I did the affirmation, I did the vision board. I truly believed, I thought I did in my vision or the sense of self that I was becoming until the self-sabotage, until deep-rooted patterns that were playing out started coming to my awareness. And I was not aware of this at the time for 2 years, if not a bit longer. I was like, why isn't anything working anymore? I'm doing the doing. So
Mhm.
that's how I started seeking more answers. So you do a chakra clearing. It's like, yeah, I felt great for a week, but then nothing actually changed. And as we progressed on the path, one of the biggest realizations was subconscious isn't something that lives above the line. Like it's in the mental realm. The subconscious is the whole body. It's when your body doesn't want to move, when you don't want to move forward, the subconscious is what makes your feet and legs feel so heavy that you can't physically move. That's the subconscious in action. And we think that if I just sit here and listen to affirmations, I mean, sure, some people's lives are already moving, they're already good, they can affirm their way out of where they are.
Mhm.
But when the traumatic experiences or the stuck energy, regardless of what caused it, is still there, you can't just work with, I guess, the mind and just affirming your way out of things. So there was a big realization that the subconscious isn't something that if you want to really rewire it and have that deep level transformation, mental awareness is the first part. But you do need the emotional processing of the events of the past, doing that in the present moment. That is key because you're still carrying around that energy from whether it's a past life, whether it's from this life, whatever it is. And then it comes into bodily integration. And without bringing the body online, we're not rewiring anything. So we're not going to sit here and I can journal all I want. I have boxes and pallets, maybe not pallets, but I have boxes full of journals. And none of them had anything to do with my body. None of them brought the belief back into my body to feel worthy, for all cells in my body to feel what it is that I am mentally trying to process. So I think one of the biggest fallacies is that when you're working with the mind to only deal with, I'll affirm my way, I'll visualize, I'll meditate. I mean, sure, there is a place for that, but without fundamentally bringing the body online, then you're not really accessing the subconscious. And it's not, again, can't overemphasize this enough. It's not something that lives up here in the head and I can just, rewire it as one singular program. It is also not that. I mean, Daniel can correct me if I'm wrong, but even if it is a program, that program is running countless scripts and programs and things in the background that I didn't even know it's running. Like this computer's running at the moment. I have no idea what's happening in the background, but it's damn well playing out.
Mhm.
Can
Mhm.
I say, like, Eleanor works from the idea of mind and bringing it back to the body to connect with the subconscious, which in my experience is also true, but that's really not where my
Mhm.
focus goes. Mine goes in the opposite direction, starting with mind and then connecting with spirit. The
Mhm.
idea of the unconscious is where mind becomes one, essentially, with spirit. Again, going back to that non-duality aspect, the
Mhm.
losing yourself as
Mhm.
so much larger than what you are, but
Mhm.
also so much more etheric than what you are.
Mhm.
um, we express sort of the same thing, but in opposite directions, which is
Mhm.
quite that balance as well.
Mhm.
But really, I do see the subconscious as really the part of what we think of as mind, not so much the waking ego mind, but that sense of identity in self. Even when you're dreaming, you still
Mhm.
carry this sense of self.
Mhm.
When that connects with spirit, and
Mhm.
then the self becomes enveloped by the
Mhm.
all that is the spirit, that's really how I experience the subconscious coming through.
Mhm. Mhm. So the in when we are talking about the non-duality, when we are actually going really deep into own self and where we are experiencing the oneness, is that what you are referring to the subconscious or there is something like other ways around like Carl Jung has been talking about the shadow work, the shadow self which actually grows when you are also growing. So that is actually imprinted into the subconscious mind. Is that something, or what exactly you are referring to the subconscious entity?
I mean, the shadow is part of the self. It's just when you cast a light on something, it creates a shadow. It's not
Okay.
bad, but it gives you the opportunity to see that which you're actually creating from a third person perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what you mentioned about spirit and that oneness, it's the idea of the subconscious really has it just has layers upon layers until you realize that all the layers are just they're also constructs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And really all you do is you get lost in this idea of infinity. There is
Mm-hmm.
no bottom. There is no ground. There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing. It's
Mm-hmm.
as you get more comfortable in all of it, you realize none of it, it's less and less real. So it's I also experience the subconscious as not having just there's me and there's the subconscious. It's sort of me as a separate individuated entity. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's deeper layers of the subconscious that go all the way back to just this infinite state of the divine, really,
Mm-hmm.
that is also a part like that you are a part of it and it expresses itself through
Mm-hmm.
you as well. That's
So,
the
so,
subconscious is something that I can't fully grasp either.
mm-hmm.
But it's something beyond what we think of as ourselves in our daily waking life.
So the your sections, the idea of your section is to bring the peoples to see their subconscious and have a melting of the subconscious and being the true self. Is that the idea of your section, or how does it work?
There's people that do, nervous system regulation and somatic work. There's all sorts of modalities out there, and we find that they'll point in the same direction. You
Mm-hmm.
want to put yourself back in the center of your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because from that point, when you are centered and you are present in the eternal now
Mm-hmm.
of your own reality, I mean, that's a pretty good world to live in. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh, not just a world of a state of consciousness that you want to experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's more than just working with the subconscious and working with one part at a time. Where we want to bridge it to is from, the top down
Mm,
perspective and
Mm-hmm.
bringing it right here, right now into the body. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's more than the subconscious because, do you still exist if that doesn't exist within
Mm-hmm.
you? So it's, yeah, coming at it from a very, I want to step into my godhood and you want to step into your godhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Getting to that point is, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's bigger than the
mm.
subconscious.
And can I
Mm-hmm.
add, I think there's a lot of people, particularly in the West here, that have made a shadow out of their own subconscious,
Mhm, mhm,
which is its
mhm,
own sort of twisted
mhm.
irony.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They refuse to believe there's anything after this life, in the
Mhm,
secular Western worldview. Or the
mhm,
religious, like in the Christian, it's just heaven or hell. And it's like it's
mhm,
so finite, it's so limiting, and it's even one that's not really rigorously challenged
mhm,
scientifically as we've claimed to be as a culture in the
mhm,
West. We're so scientific, but
mhm,
old habits and old beliefs can also die hard.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, most of the scientific advancement which we as a humanity we had is actually opposing the beliefs of this Mohammedan kind of like the Semitic religions basic architecture actually. So the hell and heaven, we are not even able to figure out actually this is not existing and things like that. So
Mm.
anyway, that by being said this, like have you ever did a section as a couple to a couple? I mean,
No, not yet.
when we are talking about you found out you being connected in your past life, and that experience was a very beautiful experience. And do you ever thought of bringing that experience to the couple, so connect them into the past life, and making them to feel more better in their body? And is there something has happened like that?
Yeah, so we've actually asked about this in our own regressions.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, um, my higher self doesn't want to reveal it because
Mm-hmm.
it's part of my own journey is
Mm-hmm.
also to be able to go to these places and recollect those memories and bring them back. It's a game I sort of like to play with myself, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But also the regressionist that we experienced our regression with, it was unlike any other regression
Mm,
she's also had, because she was also saying that people would come in and they have a health problem or very, I guess, day-to-day type, not that health issues are, any less important, but she was also, she's never seen anything like this before in her own career. And she was just, she's so lovely in supporting us to date and
yeah.
continues to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And she never saw, anything like this happening, because two people don't usually come together, let
Mm-hmm.
alone as friends, let alone as best friends, let alone on the verge of
Mm-hmm.
life-changing moments.
Mm-hmm.
But we, through our astrology, Daniel's done our
Mm-hmm.
combined chart, like a synastry or
Yeah, we've done, yeah, synastry composite.
yeah, and going into the working deeply with the individual and then the shared. So, eighth house is a big part of
Yeah.
where we'll go as well. And even, we didn't need astrology to tell us that we have not had
Mm-hmm.
healthy relationships in a way. There's
Mm-hmm.
always been, I guess, a shortfall. And what do people want? They want the safety, they want the peace, they want the unconditional love with
Mm-hmm.
another person. We're not meant to do things alone, and we are so conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to think that we are meant to do things alone. So
Mm-hmm.
inevitably, we want to be, working in the space of, I guess, relationships and doing things along that line, because I had the career success and you do all the things in the world, but it's not what the heart wanted. The heart wanted the
Mm-hmm.
divine love, the divine,
Mm,
feeling in every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if we, down the line in our
Mm-hmm.
long-term plan to be able to, yeah, bring this to line. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Weiss, he's a quite popular regressionist. He has a book,
Mm-hmm.
Only Love Is Real,
Mm-hmm.
and he also Daniel got it for me as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Weiss also talks about how he had two patients
Mm-hmm.
that they were sharing past lives,
Mm-hmm.
and but they were sharing it from different perspectives. And only after many sessions, and probably towards the end of the professional agreement that Brian Wise had with these patients, did he start realizing that they were meant to be together in this lifetime. And look,
Mm-hmm.
spoiler of the book, obviously, they
Mm-hmm.
they got together. So it's both maybe uncommon and common at the same time, but souls find each other.
mm.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought of doing this to a couple?
People do have group, like there are, we have seen group regressions and whatnot. You can regress people, but given the intimacy of this work, and
Mm.
also
Mm-hmm.
like we've had a session together
Mm-hmm.
where we have, gone into a regression.
Mm-hmm.
But depending where people are at,
Mm-hmm.
it's quite confronting. Like you don't know what comes up when
Mm-hmm.
you go under as well. And it's assuming that everyone can hypnotize. It can,
Everyone can,
everyone
but
can be hypnotized, but when you're in a group setting,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
how do I know it's working? Like there's no
Are
one
they
guiding.
further down than I am? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So we're not
Mm-hmm.
not too sure about doing it on a group level, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe the purpose of this podcast is you're telling us to go do it on couples or something. So we'll see how it manifests.
but
Yeah,
particularly QHHT is only a one-on-one
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
modality as well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly because especially the types of clients we'll get,
Mm-hmm.
the time, the space, the
Mm-hmm.
separation, and just that privacy is
Mm-hmm.
so necessary to create the conditions where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these clients can relax enough to allow the
Mm-hmm.
state to occur.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, you were talking about the divine feminine as well. When we look into a healthy relationship, it is very necessary the women to be in her divine feminine self, and men is in his divine masculine self. So this in this particular way, this particular relationship can have multiple dimensions and things like that. When you're talking about the divine feminine, what do you mean by that? Like, how do you express? What do you mean by a divine femininity? Whether she is actually very good in her body and very good in her expressions and things like that. And when we talk about the divine feminine, the art of love making also has a very prominent role. When we have written a book in that particular thing, actually it's called Kam Sutra, basically. Like, how do you can be really expressive and get the most out of a particular healthy relationship? And how do you see the divine feminine? What do you mean by that?
The first thing that came to mind was that Daniel pointed out that the word earth and heart have the same letters.
Mm-hmm.
And we think of the divine feminine as the ground that we stand on. It's
Mm-hmm.
having such a deep sense of belonging in your own body. That's where the feminine lives. It's very deep body consciousness. Of course, there are
Mm-hmm.
energetic elements to it, but it is a very deep connection with the wisdom of the body. That's how we access it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many ways in which to describe her. She's no less powerful than what we consider to be the divine masculine and how the
Mm-hmm.
world is built up today.
Mm-hmm.
We unconsciously honor, I was one of those people that you unconsciously honor the patriarchy, but it's actually a distorted patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And that deeply suppresses the divine feminine,
Mm-hmm.
deeply suppresses the knowing of our divinity that we are all love, the compassion, the it's very hard to put into words. I do struggle with this question because it is a power that is so grand that is very hard to grasp. But when you feel it in every cell of your body, you
Mm-hmm.
you resonate every cell of your body with that power. You are reminded of what it means to be such a feminine force and to have access to so much power and so much love and so much depth within your body. It all is contained within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But for women today, men don't have it any easier. But
Mm-hmm.
we're taught that the boss babe mentality or the hustle culture, or I'm a do it alone. I'm a strong, independent woman. There's so many narratives
Mm-hmm.
that get in the way that distort what we even understand as the divine feminine. And I am still very much early on of coming into what that energetically means. I've got mental frameworks and conceptual frameworks, but feeling what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be
Mm-hmm.
the divine feminine
Mm-hmm.
and knowing how that energy plays out, especially in union, is something that is still very new to me. And I am in the elementary stages of it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't learn this theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also add as well, like I tend to think of these principles in terms of the language used. So I
Mm-hmm.
think of the Kabbalion and the seven principles of reality, the seventh being the law of gender and
Mm-hmm.
essentially the opposite expression that exists across all planes. We
Mm-hmm.
think of the Taoist symbol of the yin and the yang. The
Mm-hmm.
yang is the what, the active force, the one that starts, and then the feminine is the yin. It's
Mm-hmm.
black, it's recessive, it's passive, but it's not any less powerful than the masculine. It just
Mm-hmm.
takes its place on the other half.
Mm-hmm.
But another big one as well is going back to like the tarot, the suit of the cups
Mm-hmm.
represents the feminine through emotion, and it
Mm-hmm.
represents the feminine through the suit of pentacles,
Mm-hmm.
which is body, as Elinor mentioned. So
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back to astrology, we look at the earth signs and the water signs as being more feminine in their nature, representing emotion and
Mm-hmm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see
Mm-hmm.
femininity. And
Mm-hmm.
then the divine feminine is really just its healthiest, fullest expression of what the principle of that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we say this is a patriarchal expression of the divine femininity, because you are saying, I mean, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's a joke.
No, well, actually, that is a masculine way to look at it because
Uh-huh.
you think of the air signs, they're about mental understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and mental understanding is the air. It's the suit of swords. It
Mm-hmm.
is masculine in its very nature to perceive
Mm-hmm.
these in terms of structure. So even
Mm-hmm.
the idea of these languages that I'm referring to are masculine in their understanding,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where that
Uh,
connection that Alan was talking, that subjective experience is that more feminine one in
mm-hmm.
this case, back to the body and to the emotions.
So, uh, can we say, like, if a society is full of matriarchal setup, then is that what you are looking for, a divine femininity? Or?
No, definitely not. It's not. No, absolutely not. And this is, distorted patriarchy, 100% of it is not what we want. And it
Mhm,
works the other way. Distorted, 100% distorted matriarchy is also not the solution.
mhm,
It's a healthy expression of both. They need each other.
mhm,
They exist
mhm,
with each other in their most healthiest expression.
mhm,
There's a dystopian book called Power. I don't remember who the author is, Elizabeth, but it's a dystopian novel where
mhm,
women there's this band of power that sits in the collarbone of men, and women
mhm,
actively take it out of their body, out of the men's body, and
mhm,
they have it. And then all of the women rise to power. But do
mhm,
they create a better reality? No, there's still rape and pillaging and fires and crime and corruption,
Which is masculine.
which is also masculine. It's like
mhm,
they the love of
Mm.
power, power of love. And I read that book
mhm, mhm,
2017, and this is when I was at a stage where I was brainwashed by corporate and really wrapped up into the feminist movement and they must rise and we must rule. It's
mhm,
like,
mhm,
no, because it's not about one gender being
mhm, mhm,
the controlling force. That's not how the energies work. That's not
mhm,
how they're meant to work. It
mhm,
is the harmony of both in the healthiest expression that offers the greatest truth, love, and freedom for
mhm,
everyone. So
mhm,
it's not to ever have one in domination. They need to express as in their most harmonious and truthful ways.
mhm,
I'd like to add as well. It's
mhm,
when we think the masculine and the feminine and the paradigms
mhm,
around patriarchy and matriarchy, it really goes back to the idea of the masculine and the feminine through the parents, the
mhm,
father and the mother,
mhm,
that we reflect that out in like later life.
mhm,
And it's the idea that like which one should be in charge, and it's like, well, why should either of them be in
mhm,
charge?
mhm,
The idea when I think of like a distorted masculine
mhm,
is one that becomes corrupt and overtly
mhm,
does
mhm,
the wrong thing because
mhm,
masculine is the action, the active principle,
mhm,
where feminine is the passive. And so I see like if there
mhm,
was a matriarchal society, particularly a distorted one, as Eleanor said, if
mhm,
the if the if a distorted patriarchy is one that dominates, controls,
mhm,
very like Saturnian energy,
mhm,
then I see a distorted matriarchy being
mhm,
like withholding love. And
mhm,
there's
mhm,
really a coldness to the society. So
mhm,
even though there might not under a distorted matriarchy, um, because I'm assuming that if we're just going to flip the scales, it doesn't mean we're going to go from a distorted patriarchy to a healthy matriarchy. But
mhm,
say if it did go to an unhealthy and distorted matriarchy, I would see one that is very cold, is very unloving. It might
mhm,
have everything and give you everything you need, but
mhm,
it's done with the loving care, that nurture that the
mhm,
feminine
mhm,
represents.
mhm,
Then that's what needs to have a revival of to counterbalance the distorted masculine. We need a
mhm,
revival of the divine feminine through
mhm,
care and compassion.
mhm, mhm. So the one thing you are doing is that taking sessions on the regression is one thing which you are trying to give the experience of your idea to the people, or the ability to express, or ability to spread your ideas to the peoples around you. And apart from that, anything else you are doing?
Personally, we're walking the path and we seek to constantly access deeper and deeper aspects of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And through the business, we're not attached to any one model. And, today Daniel alone mentioned two other different types of readings that we can
Mhm,
explore that offer different perspectives to
mhm,
enable people to uncover deeper aspects of themselves.
which is still
mhm,
growing.
mhm,
Yeah, which is still growing. And Daniel's been able to just channel. We're in a cafe and he channels for like half an hour and just gets
mhm,
so much download. So the more that our own spiritual powers come
mhm,
online as
mhm,
we evolve is a big part of what we will want to be offering.
mhm,
And
mhm,
we get readings as well. I had a reading that was giving me insight into the kinds of programs we'll develop together in the
mhm,
future and how one will be active, one will be, I don't want to use the word passive, but
mhm,
we'll, switch between how we, you know, the work that we want to do and
mhm,
what we want to create. So
mhm,
very
mhm,
much in the seeding stages and allowing the business to grow into its
mhm,
giving it the structure and personality that it wants. But the more that our own gifts come online, the more that we'll
mhm,
want to
mhm,
be sharing that.
mhm, mhm,
And of course, different containers that we want to create for people at
mhm,
different
mhm,
stages,
mhm, mhm,
whether they're being able to locate them and provide those containers and group healing is also
mhm,
what we're looking forward to in the
mhm,
new year. So
mhm,
lots to
mhm,
look forward to, lots to create, and we
mhm,
want to really work from the highest perspective and bring it down and make it
mhm,
very
mhm.
practical as well.
So bringing the awareness towards the people, you are doing the podcast and things like that. Apart from that, anything else you are doing in order to bring the awareness of the work which you peoples are doing, like.
Using the higher self as a business coach is just wonderful. It's we're in a regression, and the higher self or the unconscious is using terms that are so like worldly and business like. It's like
Mhm,
you need to go out and network. You need to develop lead magnets. Like it's using this, it's not using mystical language, and it's
mhm,
it's a bit
mhm,
funny when you hear
Yeah.
it, but
mhm,
but it's how do you access people? You give them value, and whether that's, we go to networking events and building our own profiles.
mhm,
We don't have, I guess, networks, especially over the last few years, where so many aspects of our lives were
mhm,
atrophied and you don't tend to a network. It's like a
mhm,
garden. If you're not nourishing it, it's not going to grow.
Mm.
There's
mhm,
nothing to visit. There's no garden there. So networking is a big part. And
mhm,
we were told it's having one-on-one conversations at the
mhm,
moment, going on podcasts. YouTube will be quite an important platform
For
mhm,
education.
for education purposes and
mhm,
synthesizing and structuring. And that's
mhm,
something that Daniel did bring to, our attention. There is a lot out there, but it's not structured. And when it's not structured, it can't really appeal to
mhm,
the logic mind or the
mhm,
left brainers per se. There needs to be a structure to this type of work as well. And our astrology lends itself, like
mhm,
it shows us that we are very detailed and forensic and structured in the way that we develop this, which makes it accessible to even more people. So
mhm, mhm.
that's going to be big, and yeah, workshops and containers and all sorts of things on the horizon as well.
More to come.
More to come.
Mhm. What
More
kind
to come than it was.
what kind of peoples can connect to you? Like, all kind of peoples can connect you for example, they want to connect you for the regression or anything other things or some other steps they can connect to. Like if, for
People
example, if
that,
somebody is listening to this particular podcast and he or she
yeah.
to connect with you, in what way? They can expect a regression therapy from you, or they can expect what they can expect from connecting with you.
Depends on where people are at and what they want. Some people think that they're ready for this, but
Mhm,
they they are very controlling. They are not able, they don't even meditate for a minute. So
mhm,
there's certain prerequisites for having a successful regression. Anyone can do it, but
mhm,
you don't go and run a marathon tomorrow because you decided to. There's training involved. There's certain levels of preparation. But fundamentally, if people are on the path per se and seeking answers to
mhm,
deeper questions that
mhm,
lie within and to uncover deeper aspects of themselves. They're the kind of people that would come to us. It's also people that conventional development doesn't work anymore. They've exhausted. They're just done.
Mhm.
That's similar to us. It's this done energy. It's like I just need the answer and I just want it now. And those people have a high level of willingness and
Mhm.
wantingness to explore what is considered esoterics.
Mhm. Mhm. And in what way people can connect to you? Like, by going to a particular website or your email ID.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Truthofyou.com.au.
that is the place. Can you spell it out? Like,
Truth, TRUTH of
mhm.
OFYOU.com.au.
Do you want to say something to the people who are listening to this particular podcast at any point of time?
I think I want to take it back to our tagline, like, because you're too big to be this small. We are so used to being small. It's validated. It's spiritually small.
Mhm.
It's we're conditioned. It's normalized, but it is not normal to be so small and
Mhm.
feel it on the day to day in your own existence that it permeates every part of your life. We're not meant to be this small. We're not meant to feel small across all dimensions of ourselves. We have so much bigness to us.
Mhm.
And once we get a taste of that, it's hard to fit back into the old
Mhm.
boxes. So
Mhm.
that's our tagline. Because
Yeah.
you're too big to be this small.
And what I love about is that that tagline is where we're looking for people who are starting. We want to
Mhm.
remind them that they see themselves as small, and that really there's a fallacy in that, and that they
Mhm.
are so much more than that as well. And awakening into deeper layers of understanding of yourself and
Mhm.
truth is to recognize how big you are ultimately.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So it's where we
Uh,
take that
yeah,
message.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. We are winding
Thank
up.
you for having us.